Oh, yep. I think that's working. Oh,
It
oh,
says
my
it's live.
laptop's just very slow. And my laptop is not. Oh no, there we go. Okay.
It's telling me that it's live.
Yes, it's telling me. Yeah, it says that it's live. Yeah, I don't know whether there's any lag. I think there is. But anyway, so I thought. So hello everyone. If you're watching replay or now, my name's Rebecca, and this is Alyssa. That way.
Yes.
So if you're watching this channel, you probably know I study Loricariidae. I'm interested in the scientific aspect, and this is Alyssa. Do you want to explain really what interests you about Plecos? What you
what
do them?
I mostly do is I'm trying to unravel or figure out the what I call the designer bristlenoses, and then also some interest in breeding the less common species of bristlenoses or Ancistrus genus. Um, I haven't really branched into the other genuses.
Dinner. I'm just going to switch to my laptop. Actually, I think my phone's got lag.
Oh, okay.
Let's see how this goes.
Okay.
Start cam. Okay. Any other? Let me get rid of the. Oh no! Don't end. Let me. Oh.
The screen changed,
More.
so I think it's on a different camera. Oh, now it's just me. Hi, everybody. I am not British in any way, according to genealogy tests. So I don't think we're related in any way. Hopefully Rebecca comes back. But if not, I guess we can talk. So currently I keep several of the designer breeds of Ancistrus. And what I mean by that is, like, there's the brown bristlenose that everybody refers to, like the common or the chocolate, the brown ones with the little yellow spots or splotches more.
Oh,
are you
there
back?
we go. Sorry, I didn't realise I had the camera off. Just switched to my laptop as, yeah.
Okay. Right. So I was talking about what I mean by designer breeds of the bristlenoses, just in case people need a base level of understanding. And I don't know how advanced your audience generally tends to be, but you start with the like the brown ones, chocolates, or whatever people are trying to call them to make them sound fancier. Um, and then people got the albinos, which are usually bred from the chocolates. And then there's the lemon blue eyes. There's a rumor that there's an albino lemon. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't personally run across them, but there is an albino green dragon. The green dragon, of course, being another one of the designer breeds, but they're like a hybrid of 3 different species, which is really interesting. And I don't have the 3 species memorized, but oh well. And of course, the super reds and the calicos, and the snow whites. And apparently, there's an albino snow white now. I've heard a rumor that the albino green dragons are being referred to as pineapple, but people seem to be confused on what exactly makes a pineapple bristlenose. And the other day I ran into a store that was selling a green spot bristlenose, but they didn't have any, so I couldn't confirm what it was.
Green spot, I know it's a Peruvian species. It's got an L number. I think it's like in the 400s.
Oh, okay.
Because we've imported them. Well, where I used to work had the a really tiny one. So I went through Planet Catfish and managed to match it to one. And then again, they imported them at good breeding size, but I think they're Peruvian or Colombian. Or
okay.
God knows. If it's
Cool.
the same one we're talking about.
Well, they let me put my name down for if they get any more in. So we'll see. They said they haven't seen any in a long time. They just have the label on the tank.
It's awful when that happens. You know, when you get that label and you're like, where's the fish? And then you spend ages looking for it and they're like, oh, sorry, it's sold out. I'm like, oh, great.
Right. And it's like half the time we're like, okay, I know that these fish hide really, really well. So maybe it's just behind something. But then they actually had a lot of interesting plecos in their store, which is one of the furthest from me and stay in the state. So it was kind of a bit of a drive for me to get up there. But I was like, okay, somebody here is a pleco lady.
It always is, because when you look at these lists, like I've only ever shared a few photos, but never the prices, but the lists are like they're so one of the ones I ordered, I was like, I see what it is, and it just said Pleco player. I was like, I'll order that. I was like, what the hell is this? And it's the same with what's it, knife fishes. They'd be listed as something entirely different. It's it's never what it's meant to be.
It's hard when you're dealing with common names, because like the L180 to 184s, with the Ancistruses, just to go back to ones that I really know, people are always like, well, what's the common name? What's the common name of this one? I'm like, I have seen this listed like 6 different ways. Do you want all of them? Because I've also seen each one listed.
I used to
all
make up
starry night
names.
What are you talking about?
So I worked, the manager was like, you got to have a common name. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to have fun with this. And also for other species, like where they had older common names or something. So I was like, you know, ram cichlid. I grew up knowing them as the dwarf butterfly cichlid, so I put that on all the labels. And then one of the people was like, where are the ram cichlids? I can't find them. I was like, just here. And I got away with that. I didn't get away with the because I was going to put Oscars as velvet cichlids, which is because I think common names are made to be messed with a bit. It's good when you have a funny common name.
They are, well, and the thing is sometimes you can go to one store and they'll have a really common one would be Coreodorus julii.
Yes.
Listed for, I don't know, $7. I know dollars, so we're just going to use dollars right now for my example. And you'd be like, I do not think that this is that. It would not be just $7 if it was Julii.
Yeah.
This is going to be Triliniatus, but it comes to a head when you're talking to people online who do not know that. They just go, okay, Julii, you know, they want to know what their fish is. And then they'll be like, well, that's what I bought was Julii. Like, I've got shrimp in here and in here that are a weird species of Caridina, but I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if they're really 2 different species of Caridina, because to me they look the same.
It's getting that familiarity with the group of animals, I think, as well. Like shrimp, I wouldn't know where to start with. And even snails, I've kept loads of rabbit snails and I have no idea how to identify the species. I'm just like, that colour with that skin colour. That's as far as I can go. Then the size does differ, I guess.
I guess.
And I used to be there in the store. Like some of them I really had to even use scientific papers when we got to like the smaller ones, the Hypopotominae, because I was like, Oh God, the label just says Dwarf Otto or Otto something.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah,
then
for sure.
I don't like shortening the names either a little bit.
Yeah, if you shorten them too much, it gets
Yeah.
tricky.
Like Ram, say because it's named after someone, it doesn't always like, because I think it's some scientist called Ramirez or something like that. So if it is shortening someone's name, and then it does bug me when people shorten scientific names. So Corridor is the big one online.
Yeah. And then when people they want multiple Corys,
Mm.
but then they're writing it CORY''S, and that's just a grammar thing. I don't know. I'm just an old lady.
I think it's with scientific names, it always is like, when it comes to them, there is a way to do it. Like, there's Corridorus is singular and plural. I'm all for that English, so I barely cope with this. And then I know genus and genera because I once had a meeting with a scientist and I kept saying genus wrong, and she kept correcting me with genera. So that now it's in my head.
Yes. It did look like we have some chat.
Yeah.
Let's see. Too much messing about with common morphs. Okay, yes. I understand.
You have an interest in wilds though as well. Like you've mentioned all the what's Ancistrus ranunculus, the Medusa, L255.
Right.
Well.
L255 is my favorite. At the moment, I'm waiting. I have my name in at the Wet Spot, which is a big store out here on the West Coast.
A lot.
Yeah, it gets mentioned a lot. I think the name is also kind of funny. So, yeah. But it'll be probably until either like October or November, or maybe next spring before they get some of those in.
They do seem to be seasonal. Or it's just, I think there is restrictions on them. I'm not entirely sure. I only have imported, I think, 2 batches. But then even in other stores, you see them come in waves.
Well, the other aspect too is that you have to order them, get them, and verify that it's actually correct.
Yes, as we know.
Yeah, because I had a friend who tried to order them specifically himself direct, and they were gonna ship him a box of just random bristlenoses from the area, and it's like none of these have that kite shape.
Yeah, and it's also ranunculus has a spotted variant. I've owned others. I've got some in my collection of jars, but I've also got some spotted ones in there, like of ranunculus, and they do look similar when they're really stressed.
Oh.
It's like really pin spots in a way. And when they're calm, you only notice it in the fins. It looks a bit like, I don't know, very mild velvet maybe. Or I don't know. It's not coloured or anything. But I've noticed it, and other people have bred ranunculus to get random ones with spots.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's very interesting.
I don't know. Maybe is it like an environmental thing even? Like triggering that?
It might be.
To develop. I don't know. Or hold.
Somewhere hiding in this tank is my one L255.
Somewhere in the tank is the
right. But I think
like my Ancistrus, I never I have to move house to find these things. That's when I know. That's how I knew my banjos were murdered alive or dead.
No.
Or
murdered until they were no longer alive. Yeah, for sure. But I did excitingly have my Ancistrus claro have bred in here a few times.
They're gorgeous. So I wanted
And
them,
they're
but then
so
we had
tiny.
males into the store that imported them, and I was like, oh damn. Although I wouldn't mind a singular male, it's a bit like,
Right.
yeah, it's not much.
I used to have, and this was before I had a tank incident, but I used to have one male and then 5 females. And they would all the females would come into heat or whatever at the same time. And he would just take them one at a time into a cave, do their little thing, and then fertilize the eggs. And then the female would leave, and then the next one would come. And so I would have these piles of eggs, and I would have to gather them and put them into some, like a tumbler or whatever, in order to have Plecos. And so then the tank crashed, but I had a couple of batches of eggs still. And so then these guys that I have are grown up from that saved couple batches of eggs, which is,
Yeah.
I was like, phew. They take forever to grow. And this is the first time that they've bred actually in the last couple of months. I've started noticing little ones on the glass, just hanging out up here. And I've been like, it's working. All is not lost.
I do find it with the breeding, it is very like especially with the females, it is like that you're waiting just for each one or one of them to come into season or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember, I think it's
full enough.
260 that really drove me nuts because they breed and there was 2 males to 1 female, so I'd have to wait for her.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm not going to import more, and I'm ideally not going to sell these. I did in the end. But yeah.
It's fun. So when you have like the common Ancistrus, which I am not convinced are anything resembling the wild type anymore.
No.
They're probably crossbred and crossbred and crossbred, and then like the default is brown with splotches. And I'm convinced that those are like the cockroaches of the Pleco world. I used to have this female who was like 14 years old, and she was like this big. She barely fit in one of those breeding tubes. And I put her in with 2 young, like just starting to show maleness males, and she taught those boys the business, and she had them busy. She would have one busy, and then the next one she would use the next one when he wasn't busy. It was like ridiculous.
Next to no dominance, I guess, or
preference,
like ranking each male.
Yes, I have found that the best way is to get at least one experienced partner in order for there to have an easier time.
Yes. They always seem to, like most fish, they ditch the first batch.
Right.
Or like discus, I think the one was like 5 goes. They would just eat them. It's like, why? Please don't. But then I don't want to raise them. So if the 5 survive, they survive. But
right. Raising fish to the point where you can actually confidently move them from one tank to another it's expensive if you're going to do it right, and it's tricky, and for Plecos it takes a long time. Like I have stores that refuse to understand that. Like I love them because they want to buy my fish. But if they give me like a fish this big, maybe a couple of fish this big, and they say, okay, breed these fish. And I'll be like, cool. Okay, so next year I'll be able to hopefully sex these guys and breed them for you. And they'll be like, won't it just take a few months? I'm like, these fish are like a month old.
It's also the mortality that's insane with like, because like obviously in stores, fish are getting smaller as they're at the moment, like the size that they're being imported at. But the baby bristlenoses, they are absolutely like, I swear that, I don't know why, but shipment, they just seem to bloat afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
And I also, the focus on a different sort of side note, them after shipment was also a bit of a nightmare because their eyes would pop out.
Oh.
So you'd end up with like ones with one eye, ones with none. I don't know, it's like pressure, I guess. But bristlenose, baby loricariidae don't seem to do, like, I mean, like, you know, a few centimeters. It's just not worth. It's better to buy, I think, at a better size. Although
Yeah.
I find that when you're buying ones that are like fully grown, feeding them is a bit more difficult.
Yeah, it really depends. So, like, I have fish that I don't need that are like full grown giant honka fish, right? I would love to move them, but getting them into a bag or 6 bags and then shipping them across the country because they're so big. They like, even with a polyfilter in the bag to absorb the ammonia and whatever, it's so hard on them that it's not even really all that worth it. Like I was going to go to the catfish convention in October, but then we ended up spending so much money on the plumbing that I just can't justify doing that. Because I've got a buddy who wants one of my Ancistrus Rio Eucalyptus because they strangely prefer cooler water than every other Ancistrus that I keep, and they seem to do really well with fancy goldfish. Like I keep them with fancy goldfish. Like they do not do well when they're not with fancy goldfish. I don't know why. That just seems to be their unnatural favorite environment. I don't know. It's very strange. So they like Triliniatis and goldfish for some reason. And so I was just gonna bring him one, like in a Tupperware. Yeah. Like on the plane, because he lives close to where that convention is, but I can't make it out there this year, and I feel kind of bad. I just wanted to bring him a big old honking fish. They have the best noses too. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's. I have to use poly boxes now. So when I moved, all the Loricariidae and the discus went in 2 separate poly boxes because I was like, I do not trust. Although some did go in the discus, I do not trust my barren sisters with the discus. Not to see the discus, you know, on their side of just that's it. Especially because you panic, and when they panic, it's like ultra panic.
Right. No, I understand that. I can just see it looking like a really big, like a really big Pleco wafer. Not that I feed Pleco wafers.
No, I was looking for them recently. I was like, sure, I've got some. I was like, no. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have it. Because I've just got Repashy now. The only issue is
Yeah.
the price has gone up, and they've reduced their UK selection. So, or it seems so. No one's. I've messaged people like, have they done this? And they're like, oh, we don't know. We might inquire. Like 3 months ago.
It's like, meanwhile, your fish are starving. I mean, goodness.
Yeah, it's better than EU. They can't get it at all, I don't think.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
really...
because it was stocked by us and we left. So ditch them, I guess.
the unintended consequences of
Yes.
the Brexit. That sucks.
Yeah, it's like a few brands as well. Eheim was going to go anyway. They were too pricey, but less and less places have stocked them. And then JBL, which is my mug, they're not stocked as often because of the, like, I think it's still that way, but you pay by the weight of the pallet. So most people used to get JBL Sands, but you're paying for the weight of the pallet compared to if you ordered the food.
Right.
Which is another European brand. But I think we're more leaning towards the American brands now anyway.
Oh.
Yeah, like Fluval's always going to be big. But...
Right. Yeah, Fluval's got its hold on us over here.
I don't have any running stuff
like
with Fluval. All my Fluval electrics are like kaput, apart from the heaters, and I only use them to heat up tanks because they seem to... it can't be an issue with the heater, or maybe it was the issue of the flow in tanks, but it used to create a gradient, so you can measure the difference in temperature across one side of the tank to the other.
Oh, wow.
So now it's entirely Eheim, apart from the tanks themselves. It costs a bomb, though, but...
Yeah. I have one Fluval heater left. Right. One Fluval heater left. Most of my heaters don't last very long. I keep trying to get my fish room built so that I can just heat the room. So I'm kind of tired of, spending $40 on a heater every couple of months. That's a lot of money. And I think it's less expensive to heat the room than it is to heat each individual tank when you have enough tanks to justify like a linear piston air pump to run all the air to everything. So
they probably last longer. Like I was told of someone that replaced their heaters every 6 months. Because they do just seem to go. The thermostats are terrible. And we had an electrician round and I asked endless questions about aquarium heaters to him. Like the poor guy.
Yeah. We have an electronics guy in our fish club, and he has tested so many of my Aqueon Pro heaters that have exploded or cracked or just stopped working, or that heater was in the tank and then I had my hand in the tank and then my arm brushed the metal stand and I was like, ow, 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 ow. Ooh, that's no good.
There's so many. Like so many stores have that as well, and when a storm's coming because it hurts even more. For some reason, like marine tanks are always the worst anyway. I think they would have a higher conductivity anyway, but
they have a much higher TDS for sure.
Yes. So. I did work in a store and I was like testing the TDS of the tap water and it was 450 ppm. I was like, God, we're nearly brackish on that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, pretty much. Well, I suppose you have to check what the actual salinity is.
Yeah, I don't know
whether it's brackish or not, because otherwise you're just looking at, is it hard water? Yes.
Probably was like lime scale. This store had been built a few months after. It was an old store, but they renovated it. And then the lime scale was just like, you could get a blade and it would be like sand coming off like that much. It was dreadful. And then so I was like, my soft water system had to be 80% RO to 20% tap water just to get like 150 ppm TDS. And that just about got things breeding.
Yeah.
Or it might have been 100. I know discus system was slightly high because we had stinkers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, stinker discus.
I had to remember what that was, and then I remembered.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I don't think they were ever big in the US.
They're no. For some reason, in the US we have the like Crayola box colors of discus, and it you know, it's not my favorite. It actually deters me from wanting discus. I vastly prefer the wild looking ones, the ones that are kind of tan in the body with the stripes, and then the iridescence on the fins, and that's like what I think is beautiful.
Yeah,
they're not showing, but I
no, they're not. Like, that's them. They've stuck to this corner and they've been cleaning random things. They are a pair, I know that, but I don't want them to spawn, and I don't know if they will. I need to work out what that sediment filter, whether it's affecting the fish or not, whether it is a sediment filter or and how to get it off.
Right. Well, yeah. I think there was a question on what all we feed our plecos in the chat a little minute ago.
There we go.
So what I feed a lot of Repashy, Soylent Green specifically, because I basically just have Ancistrus, and I also have some green phantoms, and they also eat the Soylent Green, as well as I have L177 and also L081 gold nuggets in different tanks. They're all in their own, they're not together, those ones. They pal around with Ancistruses and they're fine. But because I'm afraid that they will just fight each other. And
it's more when they get bigger, it makes a difference, I think.
They're all different sizes from each other, so I think the big one might actually try to kill something, and that would be unpleasant.
My medium ones will go for the small ones.
Right. Yeah. I've got a small one in with my Snow Whites, and he just hangs out under the filter all the time. He just bloop. He just hangs there. But the other thing I feed, because if I just feed Soylent Green all the time, I find that it fouls the water a little bit faster than I would like. And also it tends to cause some of them to bloat a little bit. And so I tend to try to do Soylent Green, and then green beans, and then water change with Factor AE. Here we are. We're promoting a product, which I consider vitamins, but I know that what it actually is it's promoting the growth of the bacteria and micro whatevers on the offlooks, on the all the surfaces within the tank, and then they eat that and they like it. I have actually helped bring fish back from looking like they are starving to death by making sure to feed Bacteria E every day until they were more comfortable eating food again. And then I don't know, I know it's marketed as for shrimp, and I do have a lot of shrimp, but the Plecos seem to really go for it a lot. Also, during the summertime, like right now, I grow zucchini or courgette.
I think it is. Yes, because eggplant is aubergine.
Yes. in my garden, and it's just the pronunciation. Like, I know how to spell it. I know what it is. And I don't
weird
speak French.
pronunciations.
Zucchini on my side and courgette on yours, and and so I grow that and I feed it to the plecos, and they seem to really enjoy it very much. And I blanch it before I bring it down, but yeah, that is what they get to eat. And also sometimes in the winter I'll buy some courgette or yellow squash and bring that down for them. And
Do they eat much of the squash?
The yellow squash? Yeah.
Yeah, I was tempted to get squash, and I was like, will they eat it? It's yellow. I don't know if they're like.
Well, so the yellow squash is basically like courgette but yellow. So they eat it just fine.
Yeah.
It's just another summer squash. And then once a year for around Halloween, and we get pumpkins. When we carve the pumpkins, I take the carved pieces and I boil them up and I let them eat on that too. It just produces a whole lot of orange poop. So you don't want to do it all the time. Yeah.
No,
basically what I do for them.
Yeah, I feed, so I use exclusively Repashy Soylent Green every day. They get like, I don't know, I got these large ice cube things and I just cut it up with a spoon and one per tank. So that's what they get. So there's no actual Ancistrus in this tank, but I do have courgette. Just because they're so big, I can't constantly put in Repashy for them. Especially this big female. So she gets courgette I'm trialing keeping stuff running through her gut, a bit like a rabbit. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's any benefit, but I go for the most solid courgette, because I find it breaks down so quickly. Within 12 hours, I don't blanch it, and there's some varieties, cultivars, that seem better, but shops don't sell them. They're like round courgette, because my dad has an allotment, which I don't know if you have them in the US, but like a small holding. And we grow loads of weird vegetables. So he grew these round courgettes. I was like, I'll try that out. So I scoop out the insides. Insides go to guinea pigs. The courgette goes to them. But now I don't have any left. I just go around the supermarket squishing courgettes to see if it won't decay so quickly. And then if I go, at the moment, because of the drought issue, there's loads of waste ones which seem to be better. So I'm there with the weirdest shaped courgettes. I did try green beans. She looked in disdain to that. The big female. I wanted to try squash, and I was like, do I not? I tried sweet potato. That was enjoyed by the snails.
Yeah. I haven't found sweet potato or carrot or any of the tuber vegetable type things to be very useful to my fish. For whatever reason, I don't know. Some stores still feed carrots to their
never used
fish.
Carrot. My parents
was
Xanthellus. When my first ever one, I managed to wean onto sweet potato as the first diet, but none of my others, like that tank with the smaller ones, they won't even touch any veg. It just gets looked at and then okay, saves effort.
One thing that I used to do before I just decided to get frozen broccoli all the time, and when I would get the big, the heads of broccoli with the stem attached, is I would get the stem and I would cut it into fourths and then boil that and then feed the stem of the broccoli to the bristlenoses, and then they would eat that just fine.
I might try. I prefer to get frozen, because the last whole broccoli we got, lifted it out, and there's a bloody caterpillar. And then
Ew.
so I was like, oh, I'll cut off that but put that in the bin. Then about when I next went to use it, like the day after, to feed the guinea pigs, there was a slug in the middle. I was like, oh my God, I'm done with broccoli. Frozen might be safer.
Yeah, the frozen ones at least the bugs are dead.
Yeah, I hope so anyway.
Right.
Like, especially when you see those videos online of like stuff people have cooked and they're over as maggots. It's like, oh no.
Yeah. Plus the other thing is for me is like if you buy a bunch of vegetables, it's bad by the end of the week if you get the fresh ones. But if you buy the frozen ones, they'll last you until you use them. Like I've got cherry tomatoes from last year that I grew myself. We had like so many tomatoes last year, it was insane. And I picked them and I washed them and I saved them in a like gallon freezer bags and just stored them in the freezer, and we still have them. Been slowly going through them. We haven't had to buy tomatoes in forever.
Not got much freezer space anymore, so I'm like, oh, there's. But I've had some stuff in the freezer. Like when we move house, every time the veg goes in the bin, you know, the leftover veg or whatever, or soup I made about a year ago, I'm never gonna touch. But then like I always have to move with like a bucket of like specimens as well, which is
yeah.
because at the moment I left loads at my parents. They've got more, but I think I've got a squid. All I need to do is plonk in a jar, but
yeah, for sure. Especially if you get them preserved.
it's tiny. I found it in frozen food because I know of live food. I've seen fish lice in Daphnia, or Daphnia, however you say it. I've also seen live fish in brine shrimp. So, and then in frozen, I found this was mysis. I found a crab and 2 squid.
Oh wow.
I've got one. Is it this one here? Yes. Not that you can really see.
No.
That's a full-grown, well, a small species of shrimp, squid, I think. Oh, where is it easier to see?
Huh. I could see something. It kind of looks like a little alien, so I'm assuming that's the squid.
Yes. I was like, I'll keep that.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, I do grow Daphnia, and I hatch brine shrimp regularly. I also have vinegar eels, which I frequently neglect that, but it thrives on neglect, so it's fine. And but I mean, obviously, I don't really feed that to the plecos, unless, of course, some of it dies and lands on the substrate, in which case then they can, eat it. But they're not really swimming up and nomming them out of the air.
That's probably why, like, I guess vinegar shrimp are better choice than like tubiflex or tubifex. Like I used to find it in the substrate, when you're rummaging through and it, like, oh no, that stuff smells when you're culturing it because it seems to just go off so quickly.
Oh, well, I used to have tubifex. I used to have a tank that just had crystal shrimp, like crystal red shrimp in it. They weren't doing so well. They just never did, and I couldn't figure out why. And I would just sit there and stare at it, like you do. It's like, And then one day I'm looking at the substrate and there's all these like little wiggly worms.
Oh.
And little bouncing things. I was like, I don't know what that all is. Kind of looks like tubifex worms and scuds and other things. And I don't know. And so eventually the crystal shrimp just died off. And I got Elosoma gilberti, which are the
Oh,
common name, Gulf Coast pygmy sunfish. I know
oh,
that one.
I'm so jealous. As a kid, I always wanted sunfish, but
Oh,
there
really?
like none are available here. I always wanted the pygmy dwarf, you know, the little, is it Everglades?
Evergladii?
Yes.
Yes.
They're so
They're
cute. I
very
try to
similar looking
track
to
them.
mine. Um, so I got 6 from a buddy of mine who lives in California. And they're like, each one is about as big as my fingernail. They're so small, well, except for like the biggest ones, maybe about as big as my thumbnail. But and they keep my tanks free of bugs. They I put them into that tank and then I didn't see them for a long time. I was like, oh, I just put them in and they just died, clearly. And then later I saw like the females show up and they were so fat. They looked like teeny tiny, like egg-bodied goldfish. They were just so round. And then they just started breeding and breeding and breeding, and
They're meant to be quite nasty, aren't they? Or maybe I'm thinking of something else. They're quite aggressive towards each other.
no, not really. 98% of the time, those fish, if we pretend that this screen is the aquarium, 98% of the time you'll see that fish just like hanging right here and not moving much and just looking at the sky, waiting for a bug to land in the water. And then there will be like another one kind of down here, just like chilling, waiting for something to move. And then there will be like 3 more over here, but they have to be planted. Let me take you over to that tank and I will show you. We will take a little stroll. And I will adjust the camera. We won't look at me. And let's see, camera. Oh, no. Settings, camera. Back. Okay. So that tank is where my Elosoma gilberti are. In fact, there's one right here.
Is that Marimo in there? It's really difficult to see on my small screen.
It is, I mean, it's probably Claudophoria algae, but it's just hair algae. It's a lot of it. I actually encourage it in this tank specifically because the babies, when they are born, they come out and they're about as big as a whisker, or like the hair of a mouse. And they come out for like a second, they see what's around, and then they dart back down into cover. And the best kind of cover is what's right there. And so there's probably a bunch of babies underneath all that hair algae there. And they're just waiting until they're a little bit bigger. You probably can't see that male very well. But he's right here. Oh, he ran.
That's always the way.
But there's another one kind of over here, but he's back in the corner. It's going to be difficult to find him. But yeah, this is how I breed Elosoma gilbertis. There's a bunch of cull shrimp in here too, which I think you're just going to have to take my word for, unless we... Like, here's a little shrimp. You can kind of see them. They don't get eaten, but the babies that they produce get eaten.
Do you keep shrimp in all of your tanks, or
most of them? I think they get into all of the tanks too. They just
On
sort
the
of spread.
plants and
Yeah. Here's a female.
couldn't be any more different from my tanks. I've got like 4 plants now.
Oh wow. I don't know. Can you even see her?
Yeah, it looks
okay,
like
good.
almost a small like tetra in a way from here. And also we don't get I think a lot of sunfishes are banned.
Oh.
So we don't get half of the variety. A lot of US species are. So like especially like Ictaluridae, which is the bullheads, the what's that, channel cats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we don't see them at all.
Here's the male, or one of the males. I don't know if it can zoom in. Probably not.
Yeah, it's like dark.
Yeah.
They've got nice colour. That it does look like they're Everglades species, but
Yeah, he's not in
really?
full breeding dress because the females aren't receptive right now.
No.
So, but he's still like I'm here and I'm a big bad boy. So,
Are they seasonal at all?
yes, they're very seasonal. And in fact, they don't live very long. Like you would expect, I would expect this guy is probably approaching his last breeding. You can kind of see he's doing his little bit of a dance, but he's he's been in this tank for a while and has produced many babies, and there are many of his spawn. It's kind of cool.
Aren't they related to killifishes? Although I think killifishes is like a group of different fishes, like different taxa.
I don't think so. Like there are killifish that look similar.
Yeah, like
but
especially the cooler water or ones that the annuals anyway as well. Like I can vision the name but not spell or pronounce it.
Right. I know how you.
But their lifespans are insanely like, especially if you buy them as adults, they're not going to last long. Especially if you buy them when they're breeding, it seems like it's just they're not going to make it. And also they keeping them with other fishes, I think, is like the annual killies anyway, because they've got such big mouths. They eat more than people think.
Yeah, and I think people sort of misunderstand. Like usually when you're gonna do killifish, you're gonna expect that it's not gonna live for very long.
No.
And so people ship the eggs here.
Yeah, we get that here, but it all seems to be within societies. I don't know if the stores can get them in. I've never seen them listed.
Right, you pretty much need to go to killifish or like killifish people.
Is this a breeding setup for?
This is where my.
I saw a little baby. Oh, there's a few little.
Yeah, these are my. So this is my Ancistrus claro that I breed with.
They've got the large mouths.
My scarlet
Baders? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a weird one when you showed the mouth of Ancistrus claro.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've got that large, like cheetostoma.
Yeah.
Like I've seen a few Ancistrus with it. Off the top of my head, I'm going to say like Ancistrus buffonius, or that's not in the trade. It's just when I was looking at Ancistrus, it has that, very wide sort of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite different from L255 as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think L255 and ranunculus has to be quite unique in many aspects. So is this just for like the fry then, or?
No, this is where the
Oh, so it's got the whole group as well.
yeah, there's parents in here somewhere.
In some cave or, well, crevices and
Yeah,
stuff. Do you actually have caves at all, or do you just use like crevices of rocks and
there's caves.
more natural? Yeah.
There's some caves here. Whether they use them or not is up to them. This is also a nice pile of rocks within which there might be caves. I, in fact, suspect that when they breed, they use the pile of rocks.
It seems
Um,
Ancistrus prefer like more unusual spaces to what we typically think of as like breeding plex.
I would think in several cases, yes. Like if you give them a pile of debris and also caves, a lot of them will pick the pile of debris,
Yeah.
which mostly just makes it tricky
Yeah.
when you're trying to find the eggs, like to protect them or something.
It's
You
almost
can
like you'll
kind of
never be
see
able
I've
to
got
get
one
them.
vampire shrimp.
Yeah. I've wanted one of those, but I'm like, do I not? Which tank?
The only problem with the vampire shrimp is that you never see them really, except for like
Hmm.
hints. Which, to be honest, because I like my super secret fish and super secret
Yeah.
everything, it's kind of like, well, it's fine. Here's my empty tank full of lots and lots of life.
Yeah, it's like mine. I think for the other one, I had to get dinner fish. I was just like, I might as well. Makes no difference to fish. And it's like, oh, but they're a bit boring, aren't they? So I've got the emperor tetra, the blue emperors actually. I've got, what, 4 females, 2 males?
Mm.
Discus make better dinners because they're more interesting anyway.
I think it depends. Like with discus, I would be afraid of them like eating my babies because
Yeah.
they're
I would say they
big.
possibly could. Although I have got platies in that tank and that baby is still alive. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, good luck. But it's still there and it's grown and it's eating. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
mine are just, I don't know, my discus seem a bit passive. Like, I
It
don't
could
know. They're not
it
fully
could be.
grown. Sorry?
Oh, it could be that yours are just kind of passive. They might just be content with just eating what it is that you give them to eat. Like they're like, oh no, it's fine. The lady comes and she brings us food, and that's what we eat.
They are only pairs anyway. So then it's not like I've got a swarm, which is
Yeah.
awkward because like they won't tolerate like others so much. Like I did have the Stenkers in with the red covers, which are Asian of unknown origin.
Oh.
Just my pair, red covers, loads of people produce them, but um and the Stenkers were a pair. I think they've divorced now.
Oh.
But
They had a little bit of an
he just
argument.
doesn't seem interested. It's his second female so far. I don't think
Maybe
they're staying
he's
together.
maybe he's impotent.
Possibly he spawned eggs with his first wife. His second
Oh.
wife, none.
He took a vow of chastity after the first one. I don't
Hmm?
know. Who knows?
Whereas these two are better behaved. But yeah, it's like any cichlids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do we have any? Okay. I don't know. We're at the point where I'm just gonna show off. So like these are my green dragons, which are
Oh, Has my internet gone?
Am I back?
Oh, I think it's my internet.
Oh. Because it's also could be mine.
My internet cuts out, but it hasn't, I guess. I think it is mine.
Sometimes when I go over into this corner,
Yeah.
mine will cut out. So it could be mine too. I'll go back to where I was. We don't have to look at all of my stuff. As interesting as I think that they are.
So
Also, I just like looking at things.
your green dragons,
Yes.
you got them what? Quite a while ago, assuming if they're breeding.
Yes, I got so my history with the green dragons is kind of weird. So the first bristlenoses that I got were I bought them as just albino long fin bristlenoses. And then I was reading up about them and looking at photos online, and I realized that the main difference between mine and the ones online was that mine didn't have the like opaque spots that albinos have. And it just sort of sent me down this crazy spiral of, well, what is he then? Because what the heck, you know? And at the time I had two that were the same. And one of them passed away with a CO2 incident, which was, you know, experiments in adding CO2 to a planted tank. Sometimes it goes bad. And then the other one, I called him Lemon Cakes, and I just sort of went on with that. And I thought, all right, well, looks like he's a boy. Maybe he needs a girlfriend. So I went to the store and I bought him an albino female short fin. And I put them together, and within like a month, they had babies, but none of the babies looked like him, except for they all had long fins. So they basically were like long fin like him, but with opaque spots like the female, which I thought was strange. And I kept trying to figure out what he was. So I bred him with a brown female who I got from somewhere. And I got a bunch of, like a mix of albino and brown long fin bristlonoses, who I sold all of. I just sold all of those. And and I had moved the albino female to another tank and named her Snorfles, because, you know, that's what you do. And and a little while later, I realized I needed to try to figure out what was going on with this fish, because it seemed like whenever I would breed him with a fish, with another bristlenose, that I would get that bristlenose, but with long fin, because that had happened twice, right? Different females. They were both short fin. So I tried super red, and I got brown long fin fish. I tried lemon blue eyes, and the lemons looked the most similar to him. And I got a bunch of brown long fin fish, and I thought, okay, well, that's really weird.
Yeah, so it's different genetics there as well.
Totally different genetics. And then I tried, well, I had him randomly with a green dragon, but I didn't want to breed him with the green dragons. I don't remember why. I think I had a pair of green dragons, and when they bred, those fry were very valuable, and I would get a lot more per batch, you know. And I didn't want to waste a batch of eggs on
Yeah.
this weird experiment, but I had run out of space and I had stuck lemon cakes in the green dragon tank, thinking nothing would come of it, thinking that she would stay loyal to her man, and it would just. But lemon cakes apparently was a highly desirable grade A man, and she bred with lemon cakes. And what happened was I got a whole bunch of long fin green dragons out of that pairing. And I was like, is he an albino green dragon?
Because there is that fainter green dragon out there. I've never owned them. I've sold them, but the price is like in the trade is not worth it, in my opinion.
Right.
Because they're still like £79. What's that, like $100 and something in stores?
For a green dragon?
Or used to be. This was a year ago. I'm like, I'm not paying.
So they well, just a year ago it would have been pandemic pricing, but before then I think they would be like $30. You'd get green dragon.
It's a phase.
So I paid,
in a way.
yeah. Well, and also green dragons are developed in Colorado in the US.
Yeah.
The Greg Sage, and I just hadn't known, but I did know who Greg Sage was, so I ended up emailing Greg Sage and asking him if there was such a thing as an albino green dragon, because I thought I might have one. And he confirmed that there was albino fish used in, or some albino bristlenose used in the lineage of the green dragon line in order to get the long fin. And I was like, well, okay. And then it wasn't until like a couple of years later I was checking out Select Aquatics, and I noticed that he was specifically breeding short fin albino green dragons. And so then I knew, okay, yes, I did know for a fact that that is indeed a thing. And it used to be that you would get albinos out of the green dragon line, and they were considered a cull, like you would not want those. And I just had like a legacy Pleco, basically, like a legacy line. Like somebody was selling fish to this shop that also carried green dragons that were locally bred, and was just calling them albinos and not saying the full genetic ancestry of what they were. And so so I just had this guy, and I just sort of figured out what he was. And so now
did he ever list the varieties in it though, like the other varieties? Or
he has written that down for me before in the past, and I have not remembered them. They were other, it was like one kind of bristlenose that doesn't have any spots.
what, like, so it is definitely different species, and it's beyond just rumors that.
Right. It is definitely 3 different species of bristlenose comes together to make the green dragon. It's not, these are their ultimate hybrid and they're a known hybrid. I just don't remember offhand, and I would have to
No.
dig through. Hopefully my email hasn't, like, it was years ago that I asked him. And he's also, if you look through his YouTube archives, you can find somewhere where he says what they are, what the 3 different species are. And I just always forget. You would think it would be very important to me, but they're species that I don't deal with or have heard of before. Like they're not
Yeah,
ones that
I
are in
know
the trade.
Is it Triradiatus is a commonly imported, well, meant to be commonly imported, but I don't know if it's one. But I think they have spots. I don't know. I've got a question on, what's it, do you get calico coloured when you mix?
Not yet.
No, I think, isn't calico related to the super reds? So if you mix super red with calico or super red together, you can get calico, I think.
From what I have read, and I have not been able to confirm that for myself yet, the calico are almost a wild type that they found. Almost. Not really, but almost. Like maybe a sport fish that they found somewhere and bred to improve the calico-ness, and then bred out the brown to create the super red. That's the rumor that I've been told. So the assumption would be that if you have a really nice super red and you breed it with a decent calico, that you might even improve the red that shows on the calico. And when I get another tank, I will put one of my calico males in with my super red female, and we'll see what happens. But so far, I have a adult long fin brown bristlenose female who is 3/4 super red and 1/4 lemon cakes.
That has to be a new variety. Just call it lemon cake.
And she's chilling and she's waiting for me to get another tank open so I can just kind of pop her in with super red again and see what happens with those spawn,
The
see if
reds
I can
don't breed
do
true
something.
though, do they? Oh, I don't.
The reds?
Yeah, the super reds, don't they breed calicos?
I do get some dirty reds, but most of my super reds just breed super reds.
No, I want to breed and experiment with them. Like, what's it? That famous experiment with, is it snapdragons or sweet peas to understand inheritance of colour?
Sweet peas.
Yes.
Yep.
Because that would
It's
be
very interesting. Mendelian, get into that
We need
Mendelian
so
genetic.
many tanks though, and then breeding offspring like siblings as well.
Right.
It'd be interesting to see how it all mixes, because I think we don't really, half of it's assumptions. Like sometimes, like with longfin, like people breed longfin to longfin and then get ones that aren't longfin, it seems.
Yep.
Which doesn't make it dominant, unless that longfin is heterozygous.
Right.
Like
well, so
long
that
fin.
was one thing with lemon cakes, is that his long fin gene seemed to be dominant. And
So maybe he's a rare example of one that is homozygous. Or a lot of people that breed, you notice the mistakes, you don't notice like where things work.
Right. And the way that I could tell that his gene seemed to be dominant was that like if I bred him with a short fin fish every single time, every single one of those spawn would be long fin, right?
Yes,
And
that makes sense. Yeah.
so then if I took those long fin babies and bred them back to a short fin fish, then I would get like 50-50 long and short.
Yeah.
And if I bred them back to, say, lemon cakes, who, as far as I can tell, seems to be homozygous or seemed, rest in peace, lemon cakes.
You have to
Lived a
open
long
a
time,
memorial.
but there's only so much time.
Do you have
But
any with his, like, any that are his coloration left?
Yes, actually, I do. They're in that tank that's over in the corner where my connection dropped out. So the interesting thing about that is when I moved to this house that has a lovely basement, I was afraid that something would happen with my green dragon line that had the albinos in it. And I sent 2 of Lemon Cake's babies off to a buddy of mine in Virginia. And I could tell just by looking at them that I had a male and a female. And so I sent them off. And they grew up and they started breeding for him, which is good because I guess out in Virginia they didn't have green dragons. And so he's making money, which is good. And then when I got situated and I got my tanks all set up, I asked if he could send me some babies back. And he waited until they were like this big. And he sent me a batch of babies, and some of them were albinos and some of them were the greens, and they're just kind of chilling in there, occasionally breeding, waiting for me to set them up a dedicated tank. But they're just growing up, doing their thing. I get the occasional short fin, which makes sense.
Oh, just on the comments, Sweet pea, it's an ornamental pea, basically. You grow it for the flowers. Does it have any other use? Not really. Like,
Not really.
it's an annual, it dies every year here anyway. And then hypostomus, if you mean hypostomus, like hypostomus plecostomus, hypostomus cotyledon, like people breed like some hypostomus, but not many. I know hypostomus flaviatus, which is your honeycomb, they've been bred, but that's about it from my knowledge. There's some that are too big. Like hypostomus luteus is 50 centimeters, excluding the tail. Yes, not many.
Let them loose in a river system with muddy banks that they can build caves in.
Yes.
And destroy the habitat of, and then they will breed, apparently, a lot. Just talk to Florida.
Yeah, Florida. It's weird. I would love to visit whether they actually farm them, or because I've seen articles about them actually just collecting the eggs from the wild, and that's where they come in. But then where do ours come from? Like Pteroplectes more. Like where do they? Because I assume ours won't come from Florida. That's way too pricey.
Really?
Yeah, like when I think the only place we usually get freshwater stuff from the US is, obviously there's Hawaii for marines, but it's Miami, and it's like I've never seen such expensive Pimnodus pictus because it's usually a destination where they go via. So they pick it up from South America, ship it to Miami, and then it goes outwards. It's like, oh, great. So you're paying already the price you'd pay in the UK, and then you got to import it outwards.
Well, I mean, I don't know what you guys normally would pay for what we would call a common pleco, but here you can go to the store and pick up a common pleco for like $1.50.
They're getting less common here, but I'd say maybe £10. That's probably way off, but depends on the species though. Plecos Repashy, which is your Ranger Pleco. I put the price up slightly because I was like, there's got to be a liability price. But I think it was around 15. It doesn't get as big, and I didn't label them as common plecos. We were technically banned as a company from getting common plecos. I was like, Ranger Pleco on the thing. I was like, this is an interesting experiment because the people be like, I hate common plecos. They're awful, ugly fishes. And like, oh, isn't that lovely? Isn't it sweet? I'll buy that. Okay.
It's funny because I do like the common pleco. That's the first ones that I saw was those, and I thought they looked really cool. But then I realized that they would quickly outgrow any aquarium that I had. And I remember not knowing that there was different kinds of plecos. Like I just didn't know. And I went to this shop in Chinatown and I picked up a pleco for $5. And it was the most beautiful common pleco I'd ever seen in my entire life. It had red tail and red fins, and it was spotted like a leopard, or not a leopard, but like a giraffe on it. And I was like, oh, what a beautiful fish. $5? Yes, I will take home this most beautiful common pleco I've ever seen in my entire life. And it was a
Gibby set.
No, it was a L114. The leopard.
Pseudocanthicus lepidus and the
yes, Pseudocanthicus. That's the one. Leopardus, yes, or leopardus. Yeah, that's the one that I picked up just for $5 in some Chinese fish store in Chinatown.
They're gorgeous though, and they're so brilliant to feed. Just big.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're so beautiful, and I did not know what the heck I was doing, and he didn't live very long, but it definitely sparked my interest more.
Yes. Although for like Plecos, I'd say like the common plex, if they weren't given that name, they would be worth more, and that's
Probably.
the sad thing. Like especially some of them are absolutely stunning. Gibiceps has so like beautiful patterning.
Yes, they do. They have really beautiful and I think that's why people are trying to call the common bristlenose something like a chocolate bristlenose, just to try to get around that, or they're trying to, like, if they can import the Colombian bristlenose or something like that, and they look like a common bristlenose though, so they're kind of gonna run into a bit of an issue with that.
A lot of them do, like even the green spots, I think. It's a bit of a, especially if you're not super, like, you've not seen like loads of different common Ancistrus, they do look similar. And
it's
even
brown with small spots.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a minefield. Even like, I think Claro, to people that might not know, and a lot of people just buy on the name anyway, but and Agaboensis, even Monunculus, I think because it's got tentacles, people are like, bristlenose.
True. Well, and some people think it's got the nose tentacles, and then they're like, ew.
Imagine if they moved though, like independently moved their tentacles.
Yeah, just like.
More like fingerfish sort of thing. I don't know, like.
Oh gosh, because then they would use them for like eating, and they would probably end up using them to guard the eggs.
Yeah,
Like they would hold them or something on their face.
there are loricariids that do it though, like
Yeah, the
their
whiskers.
mouth,
Mhm.
but it's more of like a beard of eggs. I'm just going to quickly pop to grab something for 5 seconds. I'll be back in a second.
Okay.
Just stop cam. And
okay. I will look at the chat. Let's see. Mix blue eye and red makes calico. So far, not in my experience. Thank you, B666 Nilsson. I like my fish room as well. Let's see. What's going on here? Grapes. I would think that if I put grapes in with my Ancistrus fry, it would be too much sugar and that it would grow yeast in the tanks. However, that might be good because I do know that like if I put fresh spiderwood into the tanks, like I can't bring up your comment up on the screen or anything, B666 Nilsson, but
I can do that.
Yeah.
He said, one. This one.
Daphnia is live feed for Ancistrus. Try grapes for Ancistrus fry.
Sorry, which one?
It's back a little bit. He's talking about using grapes for Ancistrus fry.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah, I know. But no. Anyways, so I was just thinking off the top of my head that it would be too much sugar content. But I was also thinking that when I have Ancistrus fry in a tank, I like to put brand new spiderwood into the tank with the Ancistrus fry because the sugars in the wood produces a lot of like a mucousy film on it, and they just love it. I consider it first bites. And so it's possible that if you took a grape and you peeled it, maybe, because the skin would produce the tannins, and then the grapefruit itself would, I don't know, I would have to try it.
What, grapefruit or grapes?
Well, the fruit of the grape itself.
Oh, I was going to say, because grapefruits.
Yes. Grapefruit, I wouldn't.
That's very acidic.
Yeah, that would be.
I
mean, grapefruit has all kinds of crazy
people
things.
Must have tried grapes, though. People try apples, I've seen them. I
don't know. I mean, I'm not an Ancistrus, but apples tend to do bad things to my tummy, so it's not like I do have apples in the house all the time. I don't know. I think the pectin messes with my stomach a little bit.
I think
it makes me feel a little nauseous.
It's meant to cause issues to a lot of people. It's meant to be a major trigger or something. I don't know. There's a name for like triggering foods, but I don't know. What have we got? Any other comments? We've got this one. Easy way to define male and female for Ancistrus.
For Ancistrus, if
Henry
you're looking for a way to tell before the obvious, the best way for me is to pick the fish up out of the water and give it a little nose rub. Sounds weird, but the male will have like a fatty pad on the top of its nose in between its eyes, and the female will just kind of be concave, like it'll be really just skin right over the cartilage of the bone or whatever on the
Yes,
face.
I should
And
know the name of that bone, but
yes, right
yeah,
over the
I
bridge of
always
the
look
nose.
at genital papillae. So I always flip fish, and then I'm like, basically look at that, and then sometimes if you flatten it down, you can see the shape a bit better. Obviously, with tentacles, though, some species like macrophthalmus, there's no difference. And ranunculus, there's so many that you get little tentacles or like visible shape on the females, or
Right.
shape, size, number, but not as much as the males. Males are like, they're fabulous, basically, their tentacles.
Right. Like with my my Rio Ucayales, until they become fully mature, they all have like the same amount of tentacles around the lip and then a little bit coming up the snout. Just like two.
Yeah,
Every
my
single one of them.
aquariums have that.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like the males will go away for a little bit. They'll go on like a mission trip, aka they will hide in the tank somewhere. And then they will come back and they'll have like a full head of glorious mane. And they'll be rocking around on the tank glass, and they'll like get part of their tentacle stuck in their mouths and they have to like shake it off. And it's ridiculous. They're the most betentacled outside of the medusas that I've seen. And
all of theirs face forwards, though. It's very much like, I don't know. There is one Ancistrus, though, that I don't think it's got an L number, but it's got gigantic tentacles around that rim of the head. It's not described, and I don't think it's ever been imported.
oh,
But it's like bright green. Green for Pleco.
right.
It got listed in the Amazonas like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. But not
Nice.
like, it was like, these are fish we've seen in the wild and you'll never find in a store.
They probably wouldn't. They would probably be difficult to feed properly to maintain the green. But so sorry, back to sexing the fish. Like, I find that sexing them from the anal region or the genital papillae is harder before they're more mature. Because with the female, they're like a U shape. I don't know, with the male, it's a little bit more V.
Males can change the shape of it as well. I noticed, like, if you watch them against the glass, then it will sometimes be like a proper V, and sometimes it's like. So the spots are good. If you could get the spots, around that area where they get orange or green spots, like little tiny ones. It was noted by a German, Jackie. She noted the spots on a lot of the breeding females, and you can notice it on many Loricariidae especially when they're going to breed. The females will have these little spots around that area.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be the easiest method. So that's partially where I know that's when I chose my hypans to breed, not my personal hypans, but breeding hypans. I was like, I know that's definitely a female and definitely ready to breed. So that's when I put them in the soft water system. And it's also, I guess, when they get eggy. Because my Algaboensis female gets eggy.
With my bristlenoses, especially with the more designer bristlenoses, the paler they are, the easier this is to see. But you can look on the side of the fish if it's a female, and you can see like the eggs starting to build up underneath the gut area.
Yeah.
So it's like if they're on the glass, this is the head, and then they've got like a fat tummy, like my arm. We'll just make it fatter here. Yeah. So they're on the glass and they're eating, and then there's like a big fat tummy down here, and you can see like underneath it'll be a different color, like orange, or in the case of the snow whites, it'll be white.
Sometimes it's got a greenish tinge sometimes, I think. But then
I think it would depend on the species.
Yeah.
Like
the eggs are always more of a yellow, but I guess it's the skin that
it always kind of looks like the fish is drawn with like a circle, and then there's like a fish head on top and then a tail on the bottom. Whereas with the males, it's like there's a head. The head is like the top of a arc, and then the rest of them is just like a V going straight down with like fins and then a tail, and then that's it. So it seems
sometimes you do get the plump males though that have had a bit too much.
Yeah, my Rio Ucayales are pretty well fed, let's say. they're little boors. At
least you know they're healthy and feeding, but
yes, absolutely. So I don't know if that helps. It does take a bit of time to know the difference. Like if you're gonna do the nose pet situation, like you have to be able to catch the fish
and hold it in place as well. Especially if they're bigger, then they're not going to be if you're using that technique. I was thinking if you're
no, usually if the fish is like this big and you're either a female or an immature male that is not showing any bristles yet, but let's check.
I wonder if because you wouldn't be able to use it for a lot of loricariids because obviously their bones, the dermal plating goes over, but Plecostoma I know definitely has that, also that soft pad. So I wonder, but then it doesn't get tentacles. I know Ancistrus has Ancistrus tentacalis or something like that. They get tentacles, so you could probably do it with them.
Probably. But now I want to see them.
It looks like only small like tentacles. I like Ancistrus, but there isn't. You know, when you see a fish, it's like it's okay. It's an okay loricariid.
It's like, which makes I didn't have all these other ones. I would consider you.
But sexing loricariids in general is a nightmare, especially when they're mature. It's easy, and the bigger species seem to be even worse. I think I was half an hour with trying to get a female for my Ancistrus chrysolamus with them in like a poly box. We were like, I was lifting them up, and it's just almost it's worth thinking them as pet fish, which is probably the best way. They live forever almost. So
that's like one of the things, as somebody who breeds the fish, I know that like breeding them but also treating them as my pets is not the way to get the most bang for my buck, you know?
Yes.
But also, if I was just to treat them as commodities, I would not enjoy it as much. And I really do enjoy my fish. Like sometimes I give them names if they're silly enough. Like I still have the first son of lemon cakes from the first breeding with that albino female. I still have him. One of the males that I kept from that huge batch of fish. It was like 120 fish. Sold most of them, and I kept the one. And I still have him, and I call him Junior. So, and I'm actually looking at him right now. He's kind of hanging out underneath a log.
I think, yeah, it's also a lot of people seem to, especially if they want to breed and it's about breeding, it seems like more about breeding than the fish. It seems like the fishes don't breed for as long. Like you see a lot of people and they're like, oh, they finished at 5 years old, they're not going to breed anymore. Like that wouldn't make sense given how long they can live. And I guess part of it is putting more into breeding than into the actual care of the fish.
Right. Right. Well, like I was mentioning, I had that one fish who was 14, and she was still actively breeding with 2 different males. And she just kept going. She kept going. She bred up until like the day that I found her passed away. She had just like scooped out a clump of eggs and then passed away immediately. And I was like, wow, she just kept going, doing what you love, I guess.
Just to the end.
I couldn't really fault her. I mean, I had her for quite a while at that point. So yeah, it was sad, but
yeah, it happens. And I think especially common bristlenose probably won't live as long. I don't know. Many factors maybe.
yeah. I mean, she had lived, and I was her second owner too. So like when she came to me, she was like
Then
10.
it's really tracking down age, isn't it?
Yeah, well, like at least the previous owner knew how old she was.
Yes.
So that did make it, but she lived for quite a while with me, and she just lived her best life producing very large amount of common and albino bristlenoses. Which I would sell for very little money because they didn't hardly need any food even to just breed. They just bred and they grow, and that was it.
Yeah, and it's like so many people want to make money out of the hobby, and it's so difficult. Like breeding is, you put probably more into electrics and stuff than actually make out of it if you put into calculations. Like
I try not to do those calculations because they make me sad.
especially food.
Right.
Food for them, I think, adds up.
With Repashy, for me, getting Repashy to my house shipped, it's $117 for the big tubs that we were discussing, and I think they last me 3 or 4 months. So I'm spending probably $500 a year on that. And
I think ours are 90 maybe now for the big ones.
Oh wow, you get a discount.
£90.
Oh right, never mind.
No, they like us British a lot more. They're just discounting it. It's better than some brands like JBL, which is it's European, might be German, but the ingredients you can actually look at and they're exactly the same as Dr. Basler. Quite a few Tetra ones, and I do have Tetra food. Interesting. This is the American packaging. We actually have our own British one, but one company only stocks the American packaging. But it's got the exact same ingredients, but they charge for, what's it, 500? It's about a little bit bigger than this. Oh, that's probably light, but maybe 500 grams. They charge £50. And it's just, if you look at the ingredients, it's the same thing. And I'm like, no. And when you, like, I'd feed it because when you work in a store, you can't keep spending your own money on other fish, especially that many.
Right.
And there'd be so much waste. Like, they'd eat it, and then you get this, like, white sediment at the bottom.
Yeah, that's no good.
Because, and I think when it comes to food, some are really expensive for what you get.
Yeah. I mean, so on the topic of food and prepared food and things that I have had people upset with me that I do not feed some kind of wafer.
Yeah.
Like a cheap wafer or something like that for my fish. Which I don't understand.
I don't know. Like,
I think it's because they want to be able to feed a wafer.
Yeah.
And they see me having success with it, so they want to be able to have the same success. And so they assume that if they can pry out this knowledge that I'm clearly hiding from them of some magic wafer that's going to help them to feed the fish, as well as, you know, feeding canned or tinned, if you want, green beans that I squish up in my hand and then feed. And then Repashy, which I have to make it and then bring it downstairs to the basement.
That's the inconvenience of it. And I think it is, people are after convenience, and that if people want a gel food that you probably keep in the room, it wouldn't last as long. You pay more because you pay for the water content as well.
Right.
And you can buy gels, at least here, or could. I've not looked in a while.
They wouldn't last long enough in the store.
No.
Like the Repashy, you have to use the stuff that you prepare within like a week, or it grows mold. And in fact, if you buy like a big jug of Repashy, like buy in bulk to save, but you have one bristlenose.
Yeah.
Even so, I keep my big jugs in the freezer. The dry powder in the freezer, and I will prepare it, you know, a batch at a time. But it'll only last like 6 months in the freezer. So if you're not using that big jug within 6 months, I did have a buddy of mine who bought the big jug in order to save overall on the cost, like buying in bulk. And then he took like half of it and vacuum sealed it, and then he stored that in the back of the freezer, and that worked great. So if you're able to do that, you know, rock on, do that.
It's the fact it floats. Like, I don't know where it's going, and I can't break it up because I like to have the ice cubes that we have this, you know, like, what's it? Housewives, I'll call it, shop for cooking stuff, and they have like premium stuff. So I got my ice cubes from there, and they're like extra big ice cubes. So I put in different corners of the tank. So when freezing it annoys me because I can't break it up.
Right.
So the one thing that is like with dry food is that I know I think it's African land snails, a lot of people mention that, you know, when you add water to it, it expands. And some of it won't expand immediately. So it might be expanding the stomach of the animal.
Yeah.
So I never looked that much into it. But then you get a lot of food that's moist. And it doesn't, like, maybe that's best. But then it dries out after what? A month of use? and then it's probably off by the time it dries out, or it should be.
Yeah. For like egg scatterer fry that I have, like I've got some white clouds and that kind of thing hanging out in my fish room right now. I was taking dried, prepared like krill flakes and that sort of thing, but I would put them into like a container with water, and I would just stir them until it like dissolved completely, and then I would add it, because I didn't trust those little guys to actually find it and recognize these giant big flakes as food when they were only like this.
They don't quite feed like guppies either. Guppies will, God, they swarm on things.
Oh yeah, like mine will swarm the Repashy.
I do want that endler though, or endlers.
Yes, I do like my. I mean, I guess I don't technically keep guppies. I keep endlers, but my endlers are probably hybrids of guppies. So
yeah,
but
I
they're
think
small.
It's going to be difficult to get the pure things. I am tempted because I know one store I have seen, like, I don't know what variety of endler, but they had one like listed as a variety, and I can't remember if they had females too, which makes a difference. I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
And then I don't mind crossing back. It's just effort and splitting between two tanks. And then another, I saw they had wild dwarfs, swordtails, whatever species that is, I do not remember. I think it's like same genus as the bloody platies. So I probably shouldn't keep them with my platies. But I was like, if they've got those, they have other things. And I really want pictor guppies, which is a micro Polysea. But
they
in
need
the UK,
brackish.
you can only get males.
Oh. And don't they need brackish water, I think? The pictica? Oh, I think they do.
I've seen them in the UK, like in normal tanks, and they cope, but they were in hard water. Very hard water.
I've heard that they need brackish, which is actually the reason why I decided not to get them, because I don't have. I could get the little salt salinity meter and
the refractometer.
Yes, that's the word. But I've not used it, and I'm not familiar with it, and I just.
They're not difficult to use. So you just put a drop, clean it afterwards with like ideally RO distilled water, but I think the whole mixing thing, because you gotta let it mix. Like, I don't know. I've worked with saltwater. I've never worked with I have worked with brackish fish in a freshwater setup when they shouldn't have been. But yeah, I am tempted because I want my big banjos back, and I think they need to switch between the two. But am I allowed more tanks is the question. Because they need a tank of their own. Or something that can switch between the two so easily, other than mollies.
Oh yeah.
I don't want mollies. I really don't want mollies.
Mollies are cool in other people's tanks.
Yes.
In my opinion. I like them with their cool like high fin that the males.
Yes. Is it sail fin ones, or I like the Liberty mollies, but I think are they soft water or just hard water? But I've seen
they're hard. They're hard water.
There's a guy in the UK who did a lot of showing off biotopes for Central American cichlids and livebearers, and it was absolutely like that is like the sort of dream, but not. I would rather have the wilds, and a fish that can switch between brackish and not is going to take, especially not to be eaten by the platystackers and not feed quicker than them. And I know I managed to get mine eggy, but that's as far as I got.
Well, I know that I have a species of betta that will will transition to brackish water if you want to do that. Called the Mahachiensis betta.
Is that a social one or?
Yes. Yeah, I keep them in tanks of groups.
Yeah, there's a few, isn't there, that are social. I remember a few like chanoides, is it macrostoma, stuff like that?
Macrostomas, a lot of the wild types seem to do pretty well in like a family group kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I just find that the Mahachiensis bettas are just extremely pleasant. They're so fun. And they'll, like, if they're scared, like if I'm going in the tank and doing stuff, they'll all kind of pile in together like a pack of puppies, like, oh no, we must all hide together. It's okay. Well, she won't find us in a pile. And I'm like, all right, that's fine. It's just kind of cute. There was a question about feeding dandelions to plecos. I haven't tried it.
Oh. No, I haven't gone down that far. But no, I know you could buy dried dandelions because I wanted it for the guinea pigs. But would it sink? The dried ones probably not. The leaves, you'd have to tether them down.
I mean, I guess if I cooked them like I would any leaf, like spinach, like they'll eat spinach.
I tend not to feed spinach. It's just I don't really use it anymore because I know you can get kidney issues if you have too much. So I kind of, because I know it's high in oxalates, whether it affects fish, I don't know.
Yeah, I used to do it once in a while, like, you know, when you get like a bag full of spinach and then suddenly you open the bag and it just smells just a slightly like, okay, this is not
It's like a
fresh.
salty. Oh.
Yeah. And then I'll be like, well, the plecos will eat it. So I'll just boil it up and strain it out. The plecos eat it just fine. But I haven't fed dandelions mostly because we tend to take care of the dandelions in our yard pretty well. We don't really have a bunch. So yeah, that's just not a thing that we do. And I find that we have a local rabbit that kind of lives in our yard. And he kind of eats the dandelions for us too. So.
I think, yeah, I know with guinea pigs, they're not meant to have too much. Just obviously with fish foods, that's what I research. So I don't know if they're high in something else as well. I've got,
I don't know.
Just so they're saying on DIY food. I have gone into DIY food. I've got a lot of ingredients. So, like, I want to make my own stuff, but I need other ingredients. Personally, the one thing, if you're going to do DIY food with a lot of algae, it's the ingredients. Like, if you look at the cost of Repashy, it makes sense because the ingredients cost a lot just per the gram or stone or whatever. So it adds up, and then you go find the right gelling agent. And because I want to make my own or have been considering it, I'm not going to give away the one that I use, although someone might have given me or told me which one would have suggested it because I tried
Who
a few.
Could that be?
And then we've got. So I know the common bristlenose is, and that probably includes any that have been bred into it. For sex, in biology, we don't discuss genders of animals. It's a big topic, but we gender is psychological, behavioral things we cannot predict in animals. So we can, with primates, you can kind of have an idea because some are more feminine or masculine. Like there's studies with, I think, chimpanzees where you can see that some have a clear, maybe more clear gender, but fish. So with sex, I know that Ancistrus aepherosis, the common bristlenose, has the same sex determination as us, which is XY. So XX is female, XY is male. I think I might be getting it wrong. Obviously, you have what's it like where it verges off. What's it like? So you might have extra chromosomes or lack of chromosomes, but usually that causes infertility. With other loricariidae, I think it varies. Yeah.
But do you think that temperature or pH affects how many of one sex or another that you might get in a batch?
I think probably. And I think that's where in a lot of fishes people say, oh, this indicates the sex because they're only seeing one, but they're probably not seeing those that don't survive.
Right.
And that's with like, especially like the pistogramma. A lot of people are like, oh, their pH and temperature or pH. But if you look at papers, they say, I think it's chromosomal, which is the XY that mammals have, apart from platypus that has multiple X's and Y's for some reason.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I think, you almost need to, I think, go in like the genetics of the fish to actually really know.
And so as somebody who breeds and sells, usually I try to breed and then sell before they're sexable. Before they're sexable to most people. Mostly just because I don't want the fish to be sitting there while somebody is like whining about whether or not I've got females or males or something like that. It's kind of a big headache to me. But so I've not done like a tally. I don't think I've ever just sat there and just raised an entire batch from, because one batch of bristlenose is like 120 fish. And supposing that they all survive, like I've got maybe a 1,000 gallon system or something, and they're all surviving and nobody's bullying each other off of the food, and I just managed to raise them all up to sexable size. It would, number one, it would take almost a year to get there, which is,
and I think that answers for someone's comment on how long till they're sex, but I try to find it. I just
right, like you can usually start finding the early males like within 3 to 6 months. But so here's an interesting thing that happens is that the males are faster to get to the food. They're usually more aggressive. And so what often happens is that you will get a bunch of males will grow up first. And then those ones are the sellable size ones. So those ones get sent to the shops, right? And then later you'll start finding a bunch of females. Yeah.
And
But
stores
those,
get accused
yeah,
of only selling males, so maybe that's part of it. Other than
possibly. And I find that one of the few ways to prevent that from happening is to have multiple grow up tanks so that you can start sorting by size. Like, okay, this one is bigger, and you pop them over there, and this one's bigger, and this one's bigger, in order to let the smaller ones kind of hang out together and do that kind of thing. But I find that the bigger ones are almost universally all the males, and then it'll be later revealed like, oh, there's some females hidden in here. With my snow whites, it's kind of aggravating because, you know, I think I may have sold like a lot of females one time because the store wanted specifically like this size fish. and and so now I have a few females and then a whole bunch of big honking males, and and I'm like, okay, all right. So I'm just kind of like picking up various fish, like, okay, no bristles, touching the nose. I think you're a female, and put it in a separate tank to grow up by itself. Like, okay. Because sometimes like if they're all growing up together and they kind of feel crowded, they won't breed. So right now I've got one female kind of by herself in a tank with some endlers, and I'm hoping that she gets like lonely.
Lonely and desperate.
Lonely and desperate, and then I can introduce a male and she'll be like, ah, please take me into a cave and squeeze me. Because it's been about a year now since I've bred the snow whites, because the original female had to go back with her original owner, and so I'm just like, well, waiting for babies to grow up.
with the more aggressive genera, like Pseudocanthus, even at like that size, they're wanting to kill each other. It makes it easier to get a better sex ratio in the store because they're already trying to kill each other.
Oh no.
Because like even that small size, you'll get like white marks, and that's from them just having
beating each other up.
Yeah.
Yeah. The green dragons actually beat each other up pretty bad, more than any of the other ones. Like,
maybe it's past their mix, I guess. I don't.
It could be. I've frequently wondered that, but I've definitely had to hospitalize green dragon males, mostly, sometimes females, but mostly males, with like big skin lesions and stuff, and like medicate and whatever and try to heal up their.
They can do a lot of damage. It's like I've seen it most of my battle sessions because of the size, but they will lift up decor and then just drop it, not aiming for anything, but it's because they're underneath it, lifting it up, and that might be where half of the small things have met their demise. But the female was worse because she's bigger, but the male was definitely, when they argued, it was like there was maybe more of the traditional sparring.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the female just chases and throws herself.
My green dragons will tussle inside of caves. So like one will be in a cave and then another will get in there, and then they'll just like fight all around in there. And because the cave is slightly, there's like a bit of a texture.
Yeah.
Then they'll get scrapes all along their back and whatever, and they'll tear up their fins, and looks gross. And then I have to medicate them because they'll get like bacterial infections in their skin. Ugh.
Yeah, I tend to just get fin damage seems the most common. You know, the holes in the.
Yeah.
But they haven't done. They've worked out their caves. I think most of them, and none of them are really. I would say the only species that is ready to breed would be the agabuensis. The balances. I'll be curious if they are big and old enough, but I doubt it because I know there's a farm in Southeast Asia, I'm going to say to make it easy, because I don't remember which country. Taiwan, maybe. And they bred Xanthellus at like juvenile size, like that. He was an unhealthy. He looked chunky in a certain chunky way.
Oh.
But I think why not? The female could, maybe. But she was imported at a large size.
Mm-hmm.
So she could be a lot younger than, is probably a lot younger than, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose if you're like force feeding them like a goose.
I think that breeding one was 10 years old, so very small for 10, but
10 is pretty good.
yeah. I think they probably breed about 5. I know Hypans, it's about 3 years. They take a while. By that point, people are bored of them, but
I don't understand how people can be bored of them. I mean, they just get more and more glorious as they get older.
you should have seen some of the ones I bred. They were like grayscale, and people be like, "Oh, what's that?" And they never sold. And I was like, and then I've noticed eggs on L66 and L129. I was like, "Oh, they're breedable. We've had them in the store this long."
Oh wow! Wow. It makes me sad. I don't know. They're definitely
breeding age fishes never sell in stores, but you could probably get a discount, I guess, if they don't breed in the store. Just on how ugly they are. Just got the difference between L333 Bellimonte, and I would say that's probably location. I wouldn't know the coloration difference.
Yeah.
I know Bellimonte's where the dam is, so I'd assume those are immediately close to the dam. So it's probably just location. A lot of fish do have like locational color differences, but actually knowing them, and they're barely ever recorded in science.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like my sunfish are specifically from the Waukesha Springs catch location in Florida. So
and like isolation doesn't even have to be like they're in a lake. It could just be regions of different parts of that same stretch. Like I know Xanthellus, I think there was a paper, I was reading it, and I was like, it's not really something to really make a video on, but I know there's colour differences or variants as you go down. And then Chrysolamus is also located nearby, who also has those different colour variants, but they never compare it to the L numbers, which aren't representative anyway. Like, they all look the same in the end. They look like a black, brownish fish with tiny spots and no seam. So spend your £60 plus on a fish there.
Yeah, I've got my 3 gold nuggets, and one of them that I think is the most beautiful. I spent $30 on him, like 4 or 5 years ago, and then there's the one that I spent like $90 on, and he's so small. Yeah, he's so small. He's still like this big, and then there's the third one who lives with Shodidanai pufferfish that I'm babysitting.
You still have him?
I still do. It's gonna be a while. Like he's Joel's fish, and Joel doesn't have any tanks set up, so he's gotta wait.
It's your foster fish for now.
He's just a foster fish. He's hanging out with that gold nugget and some lemon blue eye.
They're like
Plecos.
little
I needed somewhere to
balloons.
go.
I remember I looked after one that was adult size, and we were like, let's try enrichment. So we put in one of those floaty ducks you put in the pond, and it really went through. I was like, oh, I don't want it swallowing.
He's really sweet. So he's living with I put some Paleatus cories in with him. And so they like to swim in this fashion, up and down in the tank. And so he will sometimes swim with them because he'll swim this way too. And he just likes it. He'll sit there in the downstream of the filter, and he's playing in the filter right now, which is kind of fun. Yeah, I don't know. He's doing well. He's getting fat on snails. I've got lots and lots of snails in my fish room, so I just keep dropping them in there.
They are brilliant. Like, shout out to Denno's. The wilds are brilliant. The captive beds are not. Depends where you get them, but
well, he's captive bred from.
I got them on dry, like dry food. Just because they get curious. Same with South Americans, but it's because, like, if you get it from a breeder, it seems fine. If you get it from certain places, they get, like, there was one I was like, if both of its eyes were this way, it'd be really cute. It had a telescope eye. I was like, can't it have two telescope eyes? Then it'd be cute. It just looks like it has a monocle.
Oh.
And these fish just never grew. Like, Shaltodenos are quite easy to keep, and it just
they're pretty
never
small.
grew.
Or relatively small. If I was to estimate, he's like this, and then he's kind of thick.
I don't know
around
how
like
big
this.
they get in the wild. I
don't know. I have no idea.
I know they're from Africa. I assume the Congo, given their common name, but
I assume so. But I don't know. He's just kind of living his life over here. I was afraid that he was gonna bite me, but so far, no.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Once I worked, because I think in the shoal they egg each other up, and those I was like, oh, I don't trust. But
for sure,
it's the Maboo that was the worst. Like, I did not trust that.
No,
because it bit a bristlenose in half.
Oh.
The bristlenose survived and was fine because it was bitten, like, it had its anus, so it could. But
that's still awful. Because there's the Maboo at the aquarium co-op up north here, and he's gigantic. Like his face is like this big, and he comes up and he'll stare at you.
This one, I think, this was from the owner had the most mixed tank. It was like Rift Valley cichlids, random catfish. It's been a while, but we took in the whole lot, and the Maboo was a good size. It wasn't, I would say, probably not fully grown. But then there's reports of them, I think, entering, is it Lake Tanganyika? But then it's like, I remember Fluval posted, aren't these nice Malawi cichlids? And it was some Frontosa.
Oh.
So it went around a bit within the stores I worked at that they were just swam up the wrong river.
Well, that's funny.
Yeah,
I know so little about the African fishes.
yeah, it's hit and miss. I know a bit about Synodontis, but only vaguely.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know sometimes what's in different lakes, like Ulchinogrannis. I think it's biscuitus, which is meant to be, I think, synonymous with Ulchinogrannis. Was it no Occidentalis? They're meant to be. It's in a synonymous. Ulchinogrannis biscuitus is synonymous with Occidentalis, and I think they're in Lake Tanganyika. Yeah,
We have
I know Lil, and I've worked with a lot of puffers. Sadly,
we have a guy in my club, Lawrence Kent, who like regularly goes to Africa and collects these rare cichlids. And they look really cool in the talk, and I have no desire. It's
no,
like I don't keep any rainbow fish at all.
no. I like you see them, and it's like, do I? But I won't find them interesting. I like them for the moment, sort of thing. The adults, when you get that hump.
Mm-hmm.
I know Bentley, he's discussed that only
Yeah,
certain ones, I think, get that massive. What was it? It's not even the nuchal hump like in cichlids. It's just
they just get like a hunch.
they look nice. Others, maybe not.
They're not. I think that it's okay that not every fish is everybody's favorite fish. You know what I mean?
Horses for courses is the.
Yeah. It's like this week actually we have Gary Lang, the famous rainbow fish guy, coming to give a talk actually tomorrow and on Tuesday at the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society. And I'm like, cool. I would like to go to both of these talks. I do like looking at the rainbow fish. I prefer the pseudomagills versus the other ones.
Because they're not true rainbow fish, are they?
They're not true rainbow fish. And I like their like cool little butterfly fins that they have that just kind of, I don't know.
They're like little baby rainbows.
A little bit, yeah. But it's still, they're just not, they're not in line with the type of fish that I want to keep, is the thing. And I think that it's okay to not purchase every fish that catches your eye and then take it home and try to shoehorn it into whatever tank you think it might possibly fit in.
It's being able to like experience different fish as well, I think. Because it's actually taking that time to think, what do I really enjoy? And sometimes it's what you least expect. Like I thought discus were boring and imported a load of wilds and I really liked them. But it's difficult, and a lot of people, they're expected to have, certain fish in every tank. Like you're meant to have a shoaling fish that whether it be Raspora, Tetra, wherever the others are.
Yeah.
And then you're meant to have like something like a Cory or a Loach, Corydoras or Loach. And I do think like if you're interested in Loricariidae, you're probably going to be interested in, I guess, to an aspect like Corydoras and Loaches. They're similar, but not the same.
Kind of. Like I like the hill stream loaches.
Yes. And with the comment, just I've never bred them. I've only kept Suelia breviventralis. I don't really know any tips on breeding them.
Nope, me neither. Sorry.
I know people that have bred them, but I've never asked.
Right.
They need a lot cooler water. More like, I guess, some of the hill stream Ancistrus, like, yeah, so I don't know. Never. I would keep them again if I had a cooler water tank. But there's other fish in line, like Ketostoma.
Yeah.
I do. Pyrocratics up in Wigan imported in some giant Ketostoma, so the rubber noses, and they were like that. I was like, when I first saw the photos, I was like, oh, I could house them. They look fine. And then I saw them, and I was like, no. And they might be even warmer water ones. I don't know. It's a genus I really want to experiment with, but they're ones, you know, like Ancistrus, you tend to only get a few species, and then you're just dealing with the rest as bycatch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I had something I was going to say, and it just sort of disappeared from my brain. Nope, I don't remember. Oh, well. Oh, no, I remember now. I think that it's really valuable for people to be able to say, I don't know.
Yes.
Like, if I don't know something, it's fine. I don't know it. I'm sorry.
Or
I'm glad
looking
that you
up,
also can say that.
but then, yeah, researching things, like I have to use my laptop. Well, I sometimes use my phone, but when you're trawling through things, you want to have multiple pages up, and it's like my laptop. And then access to things, like because I've switched institutions, like academic institutions, not other institutions.
Right.
I have to switch my access to papers and then log in to my new university, which means I have to log into my university on every single one. Apart from one, which I have an actual login, and it just makes it so much faff. I just use my laptop. But I think saying I don't know is useful in the hobby because you see so much dodgy advice.
Right. And like,
or the pressure
as
to
far
feel
as
like
the only thing that I've heard is like, I've never tried it.
yeah.
I've never kept the fish, so I can't verify. But like, they're supposed to be kind of like egg scatterers, and you're supposed to be able to have like pebbles that the eggs go down into or something. But I've never tried it, so I can't really give good advice. And I would just say you'd have to go online, look it up. People have done it. There's information online about it. It's just because that is one that I would keep doesn't mean that I have all the information right now.
No, especially breeding is definitely something like it's definitely experience work. It's something like even going into, and I used to do it especially if they are fancy goldfish, but even to discus, depends on the aspect of care. Going into old forms, where they have archived it, and you look at what people have said, and you can find really useful tips, even old books. So I've got books that 70s maybe, I don't know how old, but they've got some really good tips on certain things, and even starting off aspects of research, knowing what to Google. They're really useful.
I'm actually running out of phone battery.
I'm gonna probably have to go now soon because it's what 10:30. It's not too bad, but
not terrible. Certainly not terrible.
no.
I was just like thinking, did I even bring my phone charger down here? Do I have an available outlet? I don't even know.
Yeah, because I've only got my laptop on there, which is annoying because that way looks so much better. Instead, you have like some rather ropey looking allocations behind me and the tank that is a lot more bare.
Right. So unless there's like last minute questions.
There's this one, which is taking the spawn out of the cave. I've never tried it.
I have.
I'd assume with the females taking so much longer, it wouldn't so much. The males seem ready as soon as possible.
The main reason that I would do that would be, especially with your more common ancestors, especially if your male is a good dad. If your male is a good dad, then he's going to sit on those eggs until those fry can escape, right? And if he's really good at keeping those fry in there, he is also not eating that entire time. So for like 3 solid weeks, that dad is fasting.
Yes.
He maybe is eating, like, if a fry dies, he'll eat that, right, in order to keep it clean. But other than that, he is fasting. And so if you're trying to breed more frequently and you don't want to kill your male, it would be a good idea to try to strip the eggs out of that tank and free up your male so that he can eat food while your female is eating food to create more eggs. The other option would be to have 2 males that you can cycle between. At that point, you'd have your 1 female and you'd have your 2 males in a couple of caves, right? And then when your 1 male is sitting on eggs, what you do is you take your cave and you tap the end with your hand and you take it over and put it into the grow out tank and just kind of let it be there. And that's, at that point, I consider it a paternity tank. And then the female and the other male can hang out in their tank, the breeding tank, until the female is ready to go. And then when that happens, you can do the same thing with that male, but to a different tank altogether. And then when you feel like that female is ready to go again, you can take the original male back into that breeding tank with the cave.
You're not going to be able to get him out of the cave.
Right.
Or that'll be
right, because those males will stay in the cave.
I've sold fish
pretty
with
hard.
The cave.
Oh yeah.
I would say
for a cave.
I like to leave. I don't breed fishes. I have bred fishes. I like to leave them with the male just because I've always had more males, but it's just the idea that the males are doing a level of culling that I can't identify in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's always going to be some, almost to prevent some level of like artificial selection, but then like if you're breeding common bristlenoses, especially the designer ones, that's not the ideal. You're not going to want it to get reversed at all anyway. But
right.
Yeah. And then last comment before we go. Yes.
Yep, it's true.
We met on a Facebook group.
We did. We met in the Facebook group, and it just so happened like I like
as well.
Yes, we were talking about Plecos a lot, and also I remembered her name because her last name was my name, so it made it a lot easier for me to remember her name. And and so then now we're both in the Pleco group too.
Yeah, because I modded it back in 2018, 2019, and then I left. Long story. And then I came back, what was it, like 2020?
Something like that. They had turned me into a moderator and were like, man, I wish we had some more moderators that knew stuff about Plecos. And I was like, well, I noticed that you don't have Rebecca Bentley. I mean, she's like really knowledgeable about Plecos and stuff, and you should probably invite her to be a mod. And they were like, I think she was a mod before. And I was like, well, fix that. And so they did, and there you are. And now we talk to each other all the time. And as far as we can tell, genealogically, we are not, in fact, related.
Yeah.
And in fact, we've never personally met because we live
No.
very far away from each other. 8 time zones, as a matter of fact, away. So
Yeah.
it's pretty far.
Across the Atlantic and then half, what's it?
I'm all the way on the
Western
other
America?
side of America.
Yeah.
I'm all the way on the West Coast.
I've only ever been to Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, technically Boston, which is New Hampshire. I think that's the state, isn't it?
Massachusetts.
Oh, isn't the area New England? I don't know.
Massachusetts is within New England of
Yeah.
the US.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just knew it was Boston Airport. Anyway, we should probably finish now. So everyone have a good night or afternoon, whatever time
Yes.
it
is
is.
afternoon here. But good night to you.
Yes. I'll be around anyway and see other live streams anyway. But thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming, everybody.